The colony called New Astris had never known silence. Its towers hummed with power, its streets pulsed with neon veins, and above the domes, the skies shimmered with a false blue generated by machines. To most, this was home enough. To KL, it had always felt like a cage with painted walls. He stood on the embarkation deck of the stellar Ark Odyssey, tightening the straps of his harness. Around him, crew members made their final checks, their voices sharp against the low drone of engines preparing to ignite. Across the chamber, he caught sight of Rena, her gaze fixed not on the ship but on the simulated horizon projected against the dome. "You're staring too hard," Kale muttered as he approached her. "It's not even real." Her lips curved into a faint smile. "Neither is half our history. Doesn't mean I shouldn't look." Kale shook his head. Rena was like that, always asking, always wondering. She could see poetry in a circuit board, mystery in a broken clock. It was one of the reasons the council had paired them. Kyle, the engineer who trusted only what he could hold in his hands, and Rena, the archivist who believed even forgotten myths held weight. Their mission was clear. The council had unearthed old coordinates from deep within the archives, a destination marked only as E2, buried beneath layers of encryption. Some whispered it was a legend. Others said it was a mistake, but the council had declared it vital. Find it, chart it, return. The Odyssey was built for long-range travel, a vessel of dark alloys and humming reactors, with enough storage to sustain a two-person crew for years. Its walls bore no insignia, only the mark of the mission. A star cut through with a single line, like a scar across the heavens. As the engines warmed, a voice filled the deck. "Crew of the Odyssey, prepare for departure. This is not a voyage of conquest, this is a voyage of remembrance." The words meant little to Kale, but Rena's expression softened, almost reverent. She whispered under her breath, "Remembrance of what?" The boarding sirens blared. Kale and Rena moved into the ship's central cabin, strapping themselves into acceleration seats. The harnesses clicked into place, cold and metallic against their suits. "First time off-world?" Kale asked, noticing Rena's white knuckles. "First time leaving the dome, actually," she admitted. "I've never even seen the stars without filters." Kale almost laughed, but the engines roared before he could. The Odyssey shuddered, the colony domes shrinking below them as they rose. For a brief moment, the false sky cracked, and the black void opened above them. Rena gasped, her eyes wide as the stars revealed themselves. Countless, endless, alive in a way no simulation had ever shown. "They don't blink," she whispered. "In the dome, they always blinked. Out here, they burn." Kale said nothing. He had seen stars before during brief repair runs beyond the dome, but even he felt something shift in his chest as the colony dwindled to a speck of light against the infinite. The ship's AI crackled to life, its voice steady, genderless, almost soothing. "Course locked, destination E2. Estimated travel, 3 years, 7 months, 12 days. 3 years, Rena murmured. "Just the two of us." Kale smirked. Plenty of time to get tired of each other. But inside, he felt the weight of it settle. 3 years cut off from the colony. 3 years with only Rena and the hum of the ship. As New Astris vanished behind them, Kale wondered if they would ever see it again. And Rena, staring at the stars, wondered if what lay ahead was not discovery, but something forgotten. Something the council had hidden, waiting in the silence of space. The Odyssey slipped into its trajectory like a needle through cloth, silent and steady. Days stretched into a rhythm the ship itself seemed to dictate, its hum a constant heartbeat against the void. Kale adapted quickly. He had always thrived on routine. Every morning cycle began the same. Wake to the soft glow of the ship's artificial dawn, run diagnostics on the engines, then check oxygen and power levels. He worked with mechanical precision, moving from console to console, never wasting a step. Rena, on the other hand, moved like she was learning to dance in low gravity. She would linger in the observation bay, sketching star fields on her tablet, or lose herself scrolling through fragments of archived myths. Sometimes Kale found her murmuring them aloud, as if the ship's metal walls could carry stories where radio waves could not. "You know those tales won't keep the reactors from failing," Kale grumbled one morning as he tightened a bolt along the coolant shaft. "And your bolts won't keep us sane," Rena replied lightly, never looking up from her tablet. Meals were rationed into neat packs, protein bars, nutrient gels, recycled water. To Kale, it was just fuel. To Rena, it was monotony. She often reshaped the packs into odd forms before eating. Joking, "At least let me pretend this one's bread." The ship's AI, which they nicknamed Aster, served as their third crewmate. Aster announced wake cycles, managed navigation, and occasionally reminded them to exercise in the gravity ring. Its voice was neutral, but Rena insisted there was a faint warmth in it. "I think it likes us," she said one evening, strapping herself into the treadmill. Kale rolled his eyes. "It's programmed to keep us alive, not to make friends." Yet even he sometimes found comfort in Aster's steady tone, especially during the long silences between conversations. Life aboard the Odyssey was both endless and fragile. The ship offered only 4 main compartments: the central cabin where they ate and worked, the small gravity ring for exercise, the bunks tucked into narrow alcoves, and the observation bay with its vast dome of reinforced glass. Beyond those walls lay nothing but black infinity. At first, Rena couldn't sleep. The silence pressed too close, the weight of the void outside too heavy. She would whisper to herself, telling fragments of old Earth stories, anything to keep the dark at bay. Kale, used to solitude, tried not to notice, but one night, as he passed her bunk, he heard her voice trembling through the thin curtain. She was reciting something about rivers and trees, things she had never seen except in archives. For the first time, Kale paused. He wanted to tell her he understood, that the silence pressed against him too, though he carried it differently. But the words stuck in his throat. Instead, he walked on. Weeks passed. The Odyssey crossed its first navigational marker, a shattered relay station abandoned decades ago. Kale logged it. Rena sketched it. Neither spoke of how eerie it looked, drifting alone, its lights long dead. Over time, something subtle began to grow between them. Not trust, not yet, but a fragile awareness. Kale noticed how Rena leaned closer to the glass when she saw a nebula. Rena noticed how Kyle muttered to himself when fixing delicate circuits. They were 2 halves of a vessel carrying humanity's hope, though neither quite believed it. One evening, Rena stood at the viewport, her breath fogging the glass. "Do you ever wonder," she asked softly, "why they chose us?" Kale glanced at her. "Because I can keep the ship alive." "And me?" He hesitated. "Maybe because you can keep me alive." She smiled faintly at that, but said nothing more. Behind them, the stars burned on, endless and unblinking, as the Odyssey carried them deeper into the unknown. The days aboard the Odyssey blended into one another until time itself felt like another recycled resource, stretched thin and tasteless. Kyle was tightening a coil line when the ship shuddered, subtle, but enough to make his tools slip. "Did you feel that?" he muttered. Rena was in the observation dome, her tablet floating in front of her. She pressed closer to the glass. "It's not turbulence," she whispered. "Look." Out beyond the hull, the stars bent. Not twinkled, bent. Constellations warped as if the void itself were folding. A shimmering wave rippled through the darkness, distorting light, twisting distance into impossible shapes. Kale strapped himself to the console. "Aster, report." The AI's voice buzzed low. "Unidentified anomaly. Gravitational irregularities detected. Source unknown." Rena's breath fogged the dome. "It's beautiful." "Beautiful doesn't keep us alive," Kale snapped, though his chest tightened with the same awe. The wave struck. The spaceship groaned as if the void were dragging it apart. Alarms shrieked. Kale's fingers flew across the console, rerouting power to the stabilizers. "Hold her steady," he barked, though to whom himself? The spaceship or the universe, he wasn't sure. The dome flooded with light. It wasn't like a star, not like anything natural. It was alive. Colors no human eye was meant to see pulsed in rhythm. And within the storm of bending light, something moved. Something vast, like a shadow caught between dimensions. Rena pressed her hand against the glass. "It's watching us." Kale growled, "No, it doesn't know we exist. And let's keep it that way." The ship rattled again. Panels sparked. Kale overrode 3 safety protocols, his jaw clenched. Rena tore herself from the dome and grabbed the emergency straps, holding herself down as the ship pitched. Aster's tone wavered, structural stress exceeding safe thresholds. "Hull integrity at risk." "Not today," Kyle hissed. He dumped power from non-essential systems, plunging half the ship into darkness. And then, silence. The wave passed. The stars realigned. The void fell still. For long seconds, neither of them moved. Kale's hands trembled on the controls. Rena's pulse thudded in her ears. The Odyssey floated, scarred but intact. Finally, Rena spoke. "That wasn't a storm. That was something else." Kale didn't look at her. He couldn't. His mind raced with calculations, damage reports. The bitter knowledge that space was no empty silence. It was alive with forces beyond human reach. But Rena kept staring out the dome, eyes wide, voice trembling with both fear and wonder. "Kale, what if we weren't the first to see it? What if that's why Earth went silent? Her words hung heavy in the recycled air. Kale said nothing. In the deep silence that followed, only the faint hum of the ship remained. But both of them felt it, the sense that something vast and unseen had noticed their fragile vessel and was not finished with them. 3 days after the anomaly, the spaceship still bore its scars. Power cells flickered, panels remained charred, and Kale had worked without rest to bring everything back into balance. His hands were raw from repairs, but the engines hummed steady again. Rhina, however, couldn't stop replaying what they had seen. She kept sketching it, the impossible wave, the bending stars, the hidden shadow, her tablet filled with lines that made no sense to Kale. "You're wasting power on that screen," he grumbled one evening, eyes red from exhaustion. "I'm not wasting," she said. "I'm remembering. What if it happens again and no one believes us?" "No one's left to believe us," Kale muttered. But his words rang hollow even to himself. That night cycle, as the ship drifted in silence, Aster interrupted the hum of their breathing. "Transmission detected," the AI said calmly. Both froze. Kale straightened. "From where?" Aster paused. "Source indeterminate. Coordinates. Origin matches Earth sector." The word Earth hung in the air like a ghost. "That's impossible," Kale said quickly. His voice was sharp, defensive. "Earth went silent a century ago, every record says." "Records can lie," Rena whispered, her eyes wide. "Play it." Static filled the cabin, a harsh wash of white noise. Beneath it, faint warped syllables bled through. Not language as they knew it, but patterns, rhythmic, deliberate, almost like a song. Rena's eyes glistened. "It sounds human." Kale slammed a fist against the console. "It's interference." Aftershocks from the anomaly. But even as he said it, his pulse betrayed him. He had heard it too, a cadence no storm could create. Rena leaned closer to the speaker, her voice trembling. "Kale, what if Earth isn't dead? What if something, or someone, is still calling?" He stared at her, anger masking the fear rising in his chest. "Or what if it's bait? You think anomalies that bend stars don't know how to whisper too?" The transmission cut abruptly, the cabin plunging back into sterile silence. Aster announced, "Signal terminated, no further data." For a long time, neither spoke. Only the hum of circulation fans filled the void. Finally, Rena broke the silence. "If there's even a chance, we have to follow it." Kale shook his head. "No. Our mission is forward. Colonies depend on us. Turning back is suicide." She stared at him, her voice steady now, stronger than before. "And what if forward is just running blind, while behind us, the truth waits?" The question lodged itself in Kale's mind like shrapnel. He turned back to his console, pretending to check readings, but his hands lingered. The thought gnawed at him. A dead world whispering across centuries, reaching for them through static and shadow. That night, Kale dreamed. He saw oceans he'd never touched, skies he'd never breathed, and through it all, the faint pulse of that strange, broken song echoed in his ears. When he woke, Rena was already at the dome, staring back toward the direction of Earth. Her hand rested against the glass as though she could feel the pull of a world long forgotten. The signal did not return, but it lingered like a ghost inside the ship. Kale heard it in the hum of the engines, in the hiss of recycled air, in the silence between his heartbeats. Rena carried it openly. She replayed the fragment again and again, scribbling strange notations in her sketches, as though trying to decipher a language the void itself had whispered. The tension finally snapped. "We can't ignore it," Rena said, her voice sharp in the cramped cabin. Kale didn't look up from the diagnostic board. "We already have. That's what survival is." Her hands clenched into fists. "You don't hear it? That rhythm? That voice? It wasn't just noise. It doesn't matter what it was. Our mission is clear. Reach the colonies, deliver the data, keep moving forward." Rena's eyes burned. Forward to what? Another dead relay? Another silent world? What if everything we're heading to is already gone and Earth... Her voice cracked, but she forced it steady. What if Earth is the only place that still breathes? The word Earth pressed into Kale's chest like a blade. He wanted to argue, to shout, to silence her, but the thought had already taken root. If the signal was real, then the history they'd been fed, the silence they'd accepted, might all be lies. Aster interrupted, its neutral tone slicing through the tension. Course trajectory locked. Estimated arrival, 52 days. Alteration requires dual authorization. Both froze. They knew what it meant. One of them couldn't change the path alone. To turn back, or even veer slightly toward the signal, they would have to decide together. Rena stepped closer to the console, her voice low but fierce. "Give the order with me, Kale. Just once, let's turn the ship. If we're wrong, we can course correct. But if we're right, if there's life, if there's truth, we'll be the only ones to find it." Kale's jaw clenched. He stared at the console, at the blinking cursor waiting for their voices, their choices. His whole life had been about structure, about following the mission. Missions kept people alive. Missions didn't leave room for ghosts and whispers. Yet he remembered Rena's trembling voice when she recited stories to herself in the dark. He remembered her hand against the dome, reaching for a world she'd never touched. And deep inside he remembered his own dream, waves crashing, skies stretching, voices calling. He whispered almost to himself, "And if the signal is a trap?" Rena met his eyes without flinching. "Then at least we'll know what waits in the dark." The cabin fell silent except for the steady pulse of the engines. Kale's breath slowed. His hand hovered over the console, fingers brushing the edge of the authorization pad. A choice stretched before them, as vast as the stars. Forward, into the planned future of colonies that might already be dead, or back, toward the echo of a world that refused to be forgotten. Finally, Kale spoke. "Aster, awaiting dual command." Rena's breath caught. She reached for the console, her hand steady as steel. Two voices overlapping. "Authorize course change." The ship shuddered softly as the engines reoriented. For the first time since its launch, the Odyssey turned not forward, but back, toward the ghost of Earth. And somewhere in the silent dark, the static song began to play again. The Odyssey shifted course, its engines burning a path against the pull of nothingness. The stars, once steady companions, seemed to grow restless. Constellations they had memorized now warped at the edges of perception, as though reality itself disapproved of their return. At first there was silence. Only the low hum of the ship and Kale's precise checks filled the hours. But then the shadows began. It started small, flickers in the observation dome, shapes sliding across the stars where no light should bend. Rena saw them first, sketching their jagged outlines with a trembling hand. "Do you see that?" she whispered. Kale glanced up, weary, refractions, heat trails. But the way his eyes lingered too long on the void betrayed him. By the fourth day, the signal returned, this time stronger, clearer. Not words, never words, but layers of sound that curled like smoke. Whispers rose beneath the static, threading patterns into something almost familiar. Rena pressed her ear to the speaker, eyes wide. "It's guiding us." Kale shook his head. "It's pulling us. Like a current." And yet, he didn't cut the feed. As they drew closer to the Earth sector, the phenomena multiplied. Space itself seemed haunted. Once Kale woke in the dark of his bunk to find the ship eerily still. No hum, no circulation fans, only silence. When he opened the hatch, Rena was floating in the central cabin, her eyes unfocused, murmuring fragments of the signal under her breath. "Rena!" he barked, shaking her by the shoulders. She blinked, as if surfacing from a dream. "It's teaching me." Kale pulled back, unsettled. "No, it's trying to use you." But when he turned away, he found her words gnawed at him, echoing with the same rhythm as the signal itself. On the 10th day, they encountered wreckage. An old colony transport torn open and gutted. Its hull floated in pieces, edges melted as if by fire from no human forge. Rena drifted closer to the viewport, whispering, "They tried to run." Kale's stomach turned cold. He rerouted the ship's sensors, scanning the debris. No life signs, no black box, just silence and ruin. That night he dreamed again. Oceans rising, skies burning, voices calling his name in the static. When he woke, sweat plastered his hair to his forehead, and Rena was staring at him from across the cabin, eyes dark with sleeplessness. "You heard it too," she said. Kale didn't answer. The closer they came, the stranger reality grew. Lights flickered in corridors where no one walked. Aster's voice faltered mid-sentence, spitting out fragments of languages long dead. Once, the AI whispered Kale's childhood name, a detail buried in records the ship could never have accessed. Kale slammed the console, demanding answers. Aster only replied, "Source corrupted. Input unknown." By then, even Kale could not deny it. Something was leaking into the ship. Something old, something vast, something that wanted them to continue. And still, through the chaos, Earth drew nearer. No longer just a memory, but a faint glimmer against the void. Small, blue, fragile. Rena pressed her hand to the dome. Tears welled in her eyes. "It's real," she whispered. "It's still there." But Kale's gaze hardened. For though Earth glowed ahead, faint signals crawled across its orbit like scars. shadows of satellites, broken stations, wreckage drifting like bones around a forgotten grave. Whatever waited on Earth, it was no longer the world they had imagined. Still, the signal pulsed steady in their ears, calling them home. The Odyssey fell into the shadow of Earth. Through the dome, the planet spun in silence, a faded jewel wrapped in storms. Oceans gleamed faintly beneath bruised skies. Continents lay scarred. Cities drowned or fractured, their skeletal remains jutting like broken teeth. Yet there was light. Across the surface, faint pulses shimmered. Not fires, not machines, patterns. Webs of luminescence that crawled along coasts and valleys, spreading like veins through a body. Rena's breath caught. It's alive. Kale stared, fists tight against the console. That's not Earth, not the Earth from the records. The signal swelled until the cabin shook with its rhythm. No longer static. Now a layered chorus, deep and endless, threading through bone and blood. It's calling us down, Rena whispered, tears streaking her face. Kyle, it's been waiting. Aster's voice faltered, glitching. Warning. Gravitational anomalies. Signal interference. Organic patterns detected. Source. Planetary surface. Kale fought the weight pressing on his chest. Organic? That's not Earth. That's something using Earth. But even as he spoke, the pull grew stronger, dragging their orbit closer. The planet below throbbed with the same impossible rhythm they had heard in the dark between stars. Kale slammed the override, trying to stabilize. Alarm shrieked. The Odyssey rattled like a dying beast. Rena broke free of her harness and floated to the dome. Her hand pressed against the glass, eyes alight. Don't you see? It's not dead. It changed. It became something greater. It's trying to bring us home. Kale grabbed her arm, spinning her toward him. That's not home. That's a grave wearing Earth's skin. She pulled away, defiance blazing. Then maybe graves can grow again. Maybe this is what survival looks like. The signal surged, a tidal wave of sound. The lights of Earth's surface pulsed in time, forming spirals that mirrored Rena's sketches from weeks ago. Kale's mind reeled. Had it been guiding them all along? Had every anomaly, every whisper been a lure to bring them back here? The ship shuddered violently. Aster's voice splintered. Warning, descent trajectory locked. Control compromised. Kale slammed the console again. I can't break it. Rena's eyes shone, not with fear but awe. Then maybe we're meant to see. Through the dome, Earth's surface grew closer. Cities fused into glowing networks. Forests pulsing with bioluminescence, oceans swirling with light like veins of some planetary mind. And then Kyle understood. The signal wasn't a message. It was the planet itself. Earth had not died. It had transformed. Every ruin, every root, every ocean absorbed into one vast consciousness. A living world. A world that had been waiting. The chorus thundered through the ship, through their bones. Kale fell against the console, clutching his head. Rena floated weightless, arms open, tears streaming down her cheeks. It remembers us, she whispered. The Odyssey pierced the upper atmosphere. Flames licked the hull. Alarms screamed. But still the rhythm pulsed, steady, undeniable, welcoming. Kyle closed his eyes. For the first time, he didn't fight. And as the ship descended into the waiting light, both of them knew the forgotten world was no longer silent. It had awakened, and it had called them home. And so the forgotten world awakened, its voice echoing across the stars. But tell me, friend, was it calling them home, or into something far darker?